The end didn't come with bombs or fire. It came with a sound. A hum so deep it shook our bones, a call so ancient it could not be ignored. Entire towns vanished overnight, marching willingly into the earth. And when the ground split open, we realized the truth. The world was never ours. We were only its flesh, and something inside was finally ready to be born. They thought the end would come with fire, with war, with silence. But it came with a hum. A vibration in the bones, a sound no ear could block, a call no soul could resist. This is not the story of an invasion. This is the story of a birth. The earth was never ours. We were never its masters. We were only its flesh, its fuel, its dream. And now it has awakened. It began in a place called Marlowe's Rest, a forgotten mining town in the cold spine of Alaska. Once bustling with workers who carved into the mountain for veins of copper and coal, the town had been abandoned decades earlier, left to rot under layers of snow and silence. But silence is not eternal. The first reports were simple. Hikers speaking of low rumbles beneath the ground, dogs refusing to enter certain valleys, hunters swearing the mountain itself was breathing. Amateur explorers took cameras into the old mine shafts and returned with footage so dark and distorted it felt alive. Flickering lights, air moving as though drawn by lungs, and behind it all, the sound, low, unrelenting, pulsing like a heartbeat beneath the earth. Locals dismissed it at first. Mines collapse, ice shifts, wind moves strangely in caverns. But then came the disappearances. A snowmobile found abandoned on the ridge, a family's cabin left warm with food still on the stove, but no bodies inside. Rangers investigating the mines who never came back. Only one tape survived, an officer's body cam feed, discovered weeks later in the snow, frozen solid. On it, the ground inside the mine moves like muscle, contracting and expanding, walls slick with moisture. And then the lens fills with what looks like an eye opening inside the rock before the feed cuts. The tape was locked away, never officially acknowledged, but rumors spread. By the time the government arrived, Marlowe's Rest was empty. Houses stood with lights still burning, cars sat in driveways, meals half-eaten on tables, as though the entire town had stood up in unison and walked into the mines. Satellite images showed trails in the snow, thousands of footprints, all leading to the same place, none leading back. The mine entrance was sealed with steel and explosives, but you cannot seal a wound when the skin itself wants to tear. Days later, across the world, similar reports surfaced. In Siberia, sinkholes collapsed entire forests. In the Sahara, dunes split open to reveal pyramids of black flesh pulsing with light. In the Pacific, fishermen filmed entire islands vanishing beneath waves, swallowed as though dragged down by unseen mouths. Everywhere, the same hum could be heard, at first faint, like a whisper below hearing, then louder, until glasses rattled in cupboards, until bones ached as though vibrating from within. Cities began to panic. Sleep became impossible as the hum grew constant, ever-present, shaking glass, shaking teeth. People tried earplugs, drugs, isolation chambers, but nothing worked. The sound wasn't traveling through air. It was traveling through matter itself. Concrete, metal, bone. And then came the march. In New York, in Tokyo, in Cairo, millions of people poured into the streets without warning. Not in riots, not in protest, in silence. Eyes blank, mouths moving in eerie unison, as if mouthing a word too large for sound. They moved like rivers of flesh converging toward the rupture sites. Entire populations emptied, walking willingly into the fissures in the earth. No cries, no resistance, just endless lines of humans feeding themselves into the dark. Military response was swift but useless. Soldiers fired on their own families as they marched into the ground, only for more to rise behind them. Tanks surrounded rupture sites, unleashing shells into the openings, but the rounds disappeared as if swallowed by something soft, muffled without echo. In desperation, governments deployed nuclear warheads. Footage shows the blinding flare, the mushroom cloud rising high, shockwaves flattening forests. And when the light cleared, the fissures were still there, wider, pulsing stronger, growing. From the wounds, structures began to rise. Not buildings, not machines. Towers of stone and sinew, cathedrals of bone and vein, skyscrapers that screamed as they grew, stretching into the sky with faces frozen into their walls. Survivors described them as half architecture, half organism, pulsing with heat, sweating with condensation, their windows blinking like eyes. Cities began to warp into these new shapes, as if being sculpted by an unseen hand. Highways curled into spines, bridges stretched into ribs, whole neighborhoods reshaped overnight into patterns no human mind could comprehend. Scientists in underground bunkers sent their last transmissions. Their words were not hopeful, but resigned. One whispered into his recorder, "This is not an invasion. We are not being conquered. We are being repurposed." Another concluded grimly, "Earth is not a planet. It is a womb, and what we thought was history was just gestation. Every tree, every animal, every civilization, nutrients. We are the placenta, and the child is waking." The hum became unbearable, no longer just a sound. It was a command. People who resisted tore at their ears, at their flesh, desperate to silence it. Some clawed their eyes out, screaming that the world was not what it seemed, that shadows moved differently, that reflections no longer belonged to them. Cities collapsed, not with bombs, but with silence. Whole governments vanishing as their leaders walked calmly into the dark. Broadcasts fell into static, one by one, until only fragments remained. The skin is breaking. We are inside it. We were never outside. And then came the blackout. Every satellite, every station, every city went dark at once. For 7 hours, the world existed in silence deeper than any night, broken only by the pulse of the earth. Seismographs recorded it as steady, rhythmic, global, an entire planet breathing in unison. And then the lights returned. There were no human broadcasts, no governments, no news. Only one feed, carried across every channel, every screen, every frequency. A single, vast eye. Unblinking, lidless, its iris stretching across continents, its pupil deep as oceans. Around it, mountains and cities reshaped into patterns like veins, glowing faintly. And then a voice, not sound, but comprehension. A thought pressed directly into the minds of all who remained. You are remembered. You are absorbed. You are us. The feed ended, and with it, humanity ended. No records exist beyond this point. No voices, no witnesses, only the hum, carried forever in the soil, in the seas, in the bones of the earth itself. The sound of something vast, something newborn, replaying the memory of what we once were A lullaby for a child that has finally opened its eyes.